If you have ever bought a brand new block print carving tool set, or you have a set that you've used over and over again because you love it, and suddenly it stops working, it is time to sharpen. In this quick video, I'm going to show you how I sharpen my block printing tools using a Flexcut SlipStrop. Say that 3 times fast. And I want to tell you why it's made a huge difference in how I carve all of my block prints. So, how come sometimes new carving tools need sharpening? Well, if you have a speedball starter set, those tools come fully sharpened and you can use them until they dull, and then you'll have to sharpen them. But some tools, like these I'm going to show you, come sharpened, but they still need additional honing to make sure that they're nice and sharp for carving. So this can be called a factory edge, which basically means it's not quite there. You're almost all the way to sharp. This is especially important for your U and V gouges, which are pretty much all I use when I'm making my own block prints. And a properly sharpened tool, it just makes a cleaner, nicer block print. All your lines are nice and crisp and clear. It's much less of a headache for you. And like I said before, you will know if your tools need sharpening because you will suddenly get very frustrated with the block print carving process. So now I'm going to flip over to my desk and I'm going to show you the Flexcut SlipStrop, how to use it, and just kind of walk you through the process. Let's go. So depending on where you are in your block printing journey, you might have a set of tools that look like this, where all of the blades are inside of the handle. Or you might have a set more like these that instead of changing the blades out of a single handle, each different blade has its own handle. It doesn't matter which type of carving tool you have, the sharpening process is the same either way. Let me just make a little bit of space here. The tool that we're going to use to sharpen is called the Flexcut SlipStrop. You can find these in your art store usually, on Amazon as well. I'll put a link down in the description below if you want to find one really quickly, but they're readily available. They come in this exact packaging, and if you flip it over, you can see exactly what you're in for. So it includes the strop, which is this part, and then this honing compound, which or they're calling it polishing compound. So that kind of just helps everything work a little bit better. So let's open it up. And I just like to keep it all in the case because that sharpening compound is kind of like a stick, and it can get a little bit messy. That's why you can see there's lots of little like yellow dust in here. But before I open it up, I just do want to say that there are excellent instructions inside of this that really go like step by step. And I'm going to actually show you exactly what's in the instructions, but I understand that some people need to physically see the thing happening. And so that's what I'm hoping this video can do for you. If you need to actually see the process rather than read it, I'm here to help. So let's go. Let's open it up. And I just like to keep it all in the case because that sharpening compound is kind of like a stick, and it can get a little bit messy. That's why you can see there's lots of little like yellow dust in here. For this demonstration, I'm actually going to use kind of my largest gouge, and that's mostly because it's the easiest to see. That's my largest gouge in my single tools, and then in my speedball handle tools, it's this U-Gouge. And there you go. You can see it a bit there. So I'll go ahead and put that in the handle. I always like to test to make sure it's securely in there. It is. So these are the two tools that I'm going to sharpen during this demonstration. If you look at the instructions, the first thing it talks about is the outside edge. So on these two gouges, that would mean the outside is here and here. So if you're thinking about the outside, that's the side that's up against what you're carving, that's the outside edge. Okay, so let's also go ahead and take out the actual straw. So this part, and then this again is the sharpening compound, polishing compound, sorry. I call that honing compound, so I'm going to call it honing compound from here on out. This is what it looks like. You can see it has lots of profile, and that's to help you be able to sharpen lots of different shapes of tool. It also, you can use this side as well. So I'm going to go through and show you, all kind of aspects of the sharpening process for these tools. The first thing we want to do is I'm going to go ahead and put some of this honing compound onto this area of the strop. And you can actually put this honing compound everywhere because we're going to use this part of the strop. We're going to use this. We're going to use all of this. We're going to use it all. So I'm going to go ahead and just it feels kind of like chalk. Just going to rub it in. And I don't think you need a ton, but some people put like a really thick layer on. I also like to put some here. And I have some on this side, but I'll put a little bit more. And then actually, I think that's everything I'm going to need for sharpening this size of gouge. So I'll set that aside. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is strop the outside edge, and that is this outside side of our gouge. The goal is to have as much contact between the strop and the tool as possible. So when you have a tool that's this, round U, that means it might not fit perfectly into any of these shapes. So if you look, you can see it doesn't quite fit into this shape. And so that means that when I strop, and by strop, I mean I'm going to put the tool onto the strop and I'm going to pull it this way, because if I go that way, I will cut into my strop. So when I'm doing this, I'm going to basically start with one end, with one side on the strop, and as I pull, I'm going to rock and bring it down. So I'll do that again. I start with one edge with full contact with the strop, and then I slowly pull away and rock, and then you can see I end up at the far corner of this tool. And so you can go ahead and do that. I usually do it like 4 times. So that's 3, 4. And let's go ahead and do it with the ball tool as well. And you could do this on the leather. So this is leather. It's basically just softer than this area. So let's do it on the leather for this one just to try it out. So again, we're going to still use that same motion where we're going from one end to the other and we're rocking. So, but with full contact this whole time. So I'm going to pull, and as I pull, I'm rocking. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can see it kind of ends up making this kind of moon shape. And that's just kind of how I learned how to strop this kind of a tool. We've done the outside side, and now we still have to strop the inside side. So to do that, we're going to flip the strop over. And that's the nice thing about this particular strop, is that it has all of this profile, and then we can kind of go through and see which profile fits our tool the best. And so for this, it's kind of a hybrid between this little dome and this little dome, because I'm only getting the 2 corners with that dome. And with this dome, I'm getting all the way to the top. So I'm going to go ahead and try stropping with the taller dome first. And for this, you want to be at kind of a low angle, not so low that the handle is up against the strop, and not so high that you're going to kind of create a secondary bevel into this blade. You want it to be really in alignment with what's already there. So you can kind of feel like you're not digging in. It's just at a nice angle, like a 45-ish degrees. And so then I'm going to just pull straight back. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's it. If I look at it and I feel like, you can kind of do a little touch test. Some people will like cut the little hairs on their arm. I think that's unnecessary. But I would just go ahead and try actually cutting into your carving medium and see how you feel. So this tool has a little bit of a different profile. So we'll go ahead and look at it this way again. That mound is too big. That's actually a perfect fit for this tool. So I'm going to use the same mound, and I might just add a little bit of honing compound. And the same thing again, low angle, straight back. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that's really it. I know it seems simple, and it is. So you just want to make sure that you hone the outside edge and the inside edge, and then do a test on your carving medium to see, is your tool cutting more easily? Do you feel like there's an improvement? And if there is, fantastic. And if there isn't, then maybe your tool is more blunt than you thought, and you need to do a little bit more sharpening again. I wanted to show you in the instructions, there's really great diagrams all throughout, to be honest. So with the angle of actually pulling across the strop, see, they show you like this is too low and this is too high and this is just right. It's a very Little Miss Muffet situation. And then on this side of the instructions, it really walks you through like what's a good fit versus a bad fit when you're choosing which of these shapes to use to actually sharpen your tool. So, it actually says wrong, wrong, correct. So you're looking for the most contact between your tool and the shape as possible. You really want it to fit the profile as perfectly as you can get it. Let's go ahead and do a V-shaped gouge just to practice that, because I know it's a little bit different than the U. If you're anything like me, I tend to use the really big U-gouge and the really tiny V-gouges. So let's go ahead and sharpen the 2 tiny V's. So let's start with the Speedball tiny V. It's going to be very hard to see, I apologize, but it is a tiny V, I promise. So we're going to start with the outside edge again. And since it's a V, now we can either kind of do the rocking motion again. So that would be 1. Or you can actually kind of do this side and that side, and this side and that side. And that does the same thing. So if you're uncomfortable with that rocking motion, then you can go ahead and use the this side, that side method, and that will work just as well. And I would say if you're uncomfortable or unsure about your sharpening, I would start by using the leather areas of the strop because they're a little bit less abrasive. So if you're finding that things are going wrong and you're creating like a secondary bevel, or, it's just not going as you had hoped, this is going to be less of a change for your blade than these other areas here. So I'll do my other tiny gouge, and for this one, I'm gonna use the rocking motion because this is a particularly tiny gouge. This is by far my smallest gouge. It's a number 11 file tool, and I'll write file tool up on the screen because it's a weird looking word. But I think you say file. So that's the outside edge. And then we go to the inside edge, and I like to have it this way. So I have my other tool again, and again, we're looking for the best profile fit, which I imagine, it's actually, I think, this. So if we look right here, you can see this is kind of a round shape, so it doesn't actually go all the way into the deepest corner of the tool. But if we go to this pointy profile shape, it's actually perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and put some of the honing compound on the sharpener. And then the same thing again, we're going to put the tool, we're going to get it in good contact. We're going to keep it at like a medium, 45-degree-ish angle. And we're going to go straight back 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's all I would do. I would start with 4 kind of swipes. And then if I was finding it wasn't sharp enough, then I would add more. I tend to do this fairly often so my tools don't get particularly dull. For this other tiny tool, so it's fitting in the best here. And since this one is so tiny, I might use my fingernail kind of to guide at the beginning. So 1, whoop, 2, 3, 4. And that's actually it. That's all the sharpening that you need. You might need to sharpen more often depending on how much carving you're doing, and you might need to sharpen not very often because if you're using softer carving medium like the Speedy Carve, that tends to not dull the blades as quickly as, say, a linoleum or a wood block. But that's how you can go ahead and sharpen your tools and make sure that your block prints are crisp and clear and as beautiful as physically possible. So there you have it. If you're finding that your tools are kind of dragging or slipping or not cutting well, it's time to sharpen. It's easy to think that it's your fault, but sometimes it truly is your tools. And what we really need to do is pay attention to how sharp they are, and then when they dull, we can sharpen them, and then our carving will go so much smoother. So taking the time to sharpen your tools every once in a while can really up your carving game. It can make the block print carving process so much smoother, so much nicer, and more fun, quite frankly. And it can totally change how the carving feels. And if you are just getting into block printing, I have a great starter video, an introduction to block printing. Go over and check that video out. I'll be sure to leave it somewhere on the screen for you to have a look at. In there, I tell you lots of tips and tricks to get started. I try to make it as easy and clear as possible. And if you like this video and found it helpful, I would love it if you hit the thumbs up and if you hit the subscribe button, because I'll be adding more videos about block printing and my art business journey along the way, and I would love to have you follow along and join me. Thanks so much, and I will see you next week.